Coming up, the pain and misery of the floods earlier this year are still front and centre for many. How will the Resilient Homes Fund help? Ipswich Hospital funding in the crosshairs of 3 local mayors. Festival of Horsepower hits the right note. And reminiscing about the former Jim Gardiner Pool in Limestone Park. Walter Williams and Ashleigh Mac join the show for our regular yarn over the back fence. It's Tuesday, June 21, 2022, and I'm Alan Roebuck. Welcome to Ipswich Today, which acknowledges the traditional custodians of the land on which it is produced and pays respects to elders past, present and emerging. This podcast is supported by Kinetics, people-powered web hosting trusted by Australian businesses since 1999. Ashleigh Mac was born in Ipswich. He grew up in Ebbw Vale, and we're reassured it didn't affect him very much at all. He was the first voice on QFM in 1990. He is still a media tart and a small business owner. Welcome to the show, Ash.
Mate, great to be here yet another month.
Walter Williams has called Ipswich home for 31 years. Can you believe it? He's also a well-known voice on many TV and radio ads. He was previously heard on QFM, Star FM, River, 4BC, and who knows what other radio station. Welcome to the show, Walt.
Hello, world.
Yeah, the other hello world's getting on a bit. You're not that old.
No, thank goodness.
Let's start off with something serious, and we've touched on this before in the show because it is important, and we're talking about post-flood and the couple of floods we've had this year, the big flood in 2013, 2011, and the Queensland Reconstruction Authority is beginning assessments and reviewing all homes that were flooded. A mighty big job. But in the middle of all this, the government's announced, combination between state and federal, they've announced the Resilient Homes Fund, where people can apply to either retrofit the home, raise their home, and a voluntary buyback in extreme cases. Now, Walt, we're using you as a real live Ipswich example because you've been affected by these floods. Have you applied?
Yes, definitely. Yeah. When the second lot of flooding happened this year, I went straight to the computer and went, right, I am signing on for this thing as the water's rising above the road. So I have registered my interest about this $741 million Resilient Homes Fund. Funny we bring this up today because I had a knock at the door and my trusty guard dog, Maltese Shih Tzu, attacking the fireys who visited me just today. Stephen and Michael, thank you very much. They were just doing what they're doing at the moment, and this is the community recovery thing. Literally happened today, and they dropped some more info on my doorstep about essential things that they can help people with. And this is a terrific idea. So
you're a real live example of all this. What was your experience like doing the application? Was it complicated?
No, not even for this brain. It only took me about 20 minutes. And that's what they kind of tell you at the beginning, keep 20 minutes spare and we'll do this together. The problem I'm facing, and I'm probably not Robinson Crusoe on this, is a thing called insurance limbo, which is not a dance you want to do.
No.
We put in a claim back in February with Westpac Allianz. I'll name them and shame them. We've heard bugger all from them. And I'm sure other insurance companies are doing the right thing, but some aren't. And they're just dragging their heels on this. So here we are, nearly 4 months later, and still nothing from our home and contents insurance recovery from our insurer. And we pay big bucks for this privilege.
So do you get a chance to log in and see where the claim is or anything like that? Have they looked at the claim at all?
They've sent me an initial thing back in February. I printed it up today, and it's that goes way back when, and nothing's been done since. It was March 17. It was the last thing I had from them, and saying that they were passing it on to another mob. And they're just handballing this around. And I'm sure this is happening to a few people.
Interesting.
Well, actually,
Ash, you had something to add?
Well, with the insurance companies, sometimes you have to feel a bit sorry for them. I know this might be going an opposing view.
Not really.
Well, here's Penny's car on the April Fool's Day. Yeah. Somebody went up the rear end of it. Now, normally when we have a car repair done, it's rare for it to take more than 2 or 3 weeks. This took 2 months. And the reason it took 2 months is, one, they couldn't get parts. 2, they had no staff, and 3, it went in with all the cars that were being taken away for the flood.
Of course.
Right.
So there were literally hundreds of them. So I can sort of, their workload was huge. And when I'd ring them and say, like one point they did lose the car, but it was with all the flood cars, they said it's just the sheer amount of vehicles they're going through and just trying to find panel beaters. It's so hard at the moment, you know?
Yeah.
So, you know...
I can understand that earlier in the claims process, but we're nearly at 4 months in. And they're telling me in this initial thing that they're going to wrap it up after 4 months. So which way do I go? Because on one hand, I've got community recovery saying, we can help you, but we can't as long as we know you're insured. And
you are caught in limbo land.
Catch-22.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, Walt, I don't know what to suggest, but getting back on the phone and in a phone queue isn't the most appealing thing to do.
Funny, I was on the phone in a phone queue to the insurance company when these fireys turned up today to hand out these gear.
Maybe that's what you should say to them. Phone queue.
Yes, something like that. But look,
we all. I think we're agreed. We feel for you, Walt.
I'm just one of thousands.
Yes.
I know that. I understand that, but it is difficult when you're dealing with a situation where you've got no washing machine or no dryer and things like that.
Yeah.
Fridge, blah blah. You know, it goes on. It's a long list. Talking flood though, before we wrap on that, Riverheart. 2 new barbecues came up this week at Riverheart. Thank goodness something is finally being done for the public in getting these parks back together. The cleanup has started, which is good because we've got the Spark After Dark Fest just around the corner in July.
That's right.
And the river is usually a focal point for this.
Let's move on to something else. And I think there's good news in this. In fact, I'm sure there is. It's been a very, very long haul to get to this point, about 13 or 14 years. Finally, the first lot of new and relocated businesses in Nicholas Street are due to open by the end of this month. Great to see the construction fences are gone. Certainly makes it more welcoming. Walter, again, you're our CBD correspondent because you are the closest. What's your latest walkthrough reveal?
Oh, it is good to see the fences have come down. Fantastic. What a great start that is for that part of Ipswich. It needed it. And it's been, like you say, a long haul. What, about 13 years?
I think so. 2008, 2009, I think, yeah.
It's crazy, isn't it? But it's good to see we are having businesses opening. The gelato shops open in the mall now too. Things I'd like to see, and I'm sure Ash has got a list as well. I went to Red Bank Plaza the other night to see a movie that wasn't on, long story short. But anyway, you got to read these apps right. But I noticed they've got a thing there called Hayadori, which is Korean chicken. I thought, wow, we could have that in Ipswich Centre. That'd be great. Or what about one of those Filipino eateries like the Jollibee that are very popular? Let's bring that to Oz and put it in Ipswich CBD because we've got a huge Filipino community in our city. It's growing every day.
Yes, indeed. Ash.
I agree with bringing things there. Less of the franchises, though, and more of the individual operators who have a little, you know, who can do some creative things with food.
Yes.
Right? Because if you get that rubber stamp, you know, cookie cutter food system, you end up with the same old, same old. We need something that brings a little bit of specialty to that there so it attracts people from out of town.
The ones I mentioned aren't everywhere at the moment. That's the thing.
Right.
That's why I think it'd be nice to bring them in, but I understand what you're saying.
Back to some serious stuff now. And Ipswich Hospital is in the news again for all the wrong reasons, and it's under the pump like many hospitals. What do you make of the fact that 3 Westmoreton mayors have joined forces to ramp up lobbying pressure for improvement and expansion? I'll go to you first, Ash.
I have a pet thought about this, and that is that I believe we put too much stress on that. There are too many people who can afford to go to private, who are turning up at the public hospitals. And the funny thing is, you hear about people going up there, right, and sitting for hours waiting for treatment. And then if their dog has an accident, they'll go and pay $600 on the spot to go at a vet. We need a little bit more of pay your way with that sort of thing, because if you use the emergency at St Andrews, it's brilliant, right?
Yes, it is great. We had to do that when Margie broke her wrist a couple of years ago. Go to St Andrews emergency.
I think it's about $150 or something. Yep. It's really cheap.
Yeah, it was good value.
So you get the initial assessment in the private emergency, and then of course you can make a decision if you're fit enough to make that decision about where you go from there. Okay, that's interesting.
It's interesting also that a lot of public work is being done in the private sector at the moment because they're overloaded.
And that began in earnest at the beginning of COVID. I mean, there's always been arrangements between the public system to shunt people to the private system where needed, but of course that's really ramped up in the period of COVID. There's no doubt about that. Look, we've all had our own experiences with public hospitals. I've got to say mine have been generally good, except emergency can be a testing time, and as the pressure mounts, it's obviously not good for staff. I always think of the staff as well, and the patients. So Ipswich Hospital, I think, has been left a bit behind in the growth phase of the city. There was the major expansion 10 or 15 years ago, which introduced new beds. I think there's an attempt now to introduce new beds in the old East Street Tower there, which was all admin people. They've been moved down to the old council buildings now. It's going to take a big lick of money, I think, to catch up. We're way, way behind.
I'll put the taxes up. That'll sort it.
How many out of the three of us? How many are private members of a medical fund?
I am. And
yes, I have a basic private cover that'll get me out of jail for emergencies. Yes.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, okay. That's 3 out of 3. We've got the top cover. Costs us a fortune, and that's kind of one of my bugbears, is that I see people being moved across from the public system because it's overcrowded, over by a long shot, and moved into private. And then that affects the people who are paying the big bucks annually to have a private healthcare fund which says you can have a bed. And like Ashleigh mentioned, there are people who can afford it but would rather have their overseas holiday annually instead of looking after their health.
I've always thought, and I've been corrected on this by subject matter experts, I've always thought that too many people turned up to emergency for stuff that they could go to a bulk billing GP for. I've witnessed it. I have witnessed it with my own eyes, but apparently that's not the primary reason that the emergency departments are clogged. It's just sheer demand. Ipswich has certainly been the place to be this month with the Festival of Horsepower. It was great to see it back, with even more events included. There was the Winter Nationals, the Ipswich Cup, the lesser-known 2 Days of Thunder at Queensland Raceway, which is this coming weekend, and the karting championships were held at the beginning of the month. First time pre-COVID where the crowds are back. What do you think, Walt?
Oh, look, terrific, having a festival of horsepower. I love my cars, as you know, and we had that parade go through Ipswich the other month, which was brilliant. Hasn't been done for ages. They're bringing it back on a quarterly basis. So the more the merrier. And it's good for the town too, because then people come out on the streets for things like that, and businesses flourish, and it does bring money into the city of Ipswich, having a festival of horsepower. You got people who stay because there's something on at Willowbank or wherever. Look at the other horses, the real horsepower.
Oh, the Ipswich Cup.
Ipswich Cup.
That
huge.
Just keeps getting bigger.
I left town that day, and I left on the freeway instead of the road that normally takes you straight out of town, because that was blocked. That was chockers. That's how popular that day has become post-COVID.
And it was nice to see some fine weather for the Ipswich Cup this year.
Oh, brilliant day for it.
Now, I think Ashleigh has got a story for us, a not-so-sobering story, I hear, from visiting the Ipswich Cup in years past.
Oh, yeah. Well, back in the radio days, they said, can you compare the after party? And it was the only gig I've ever worked at where they threw full cans at me. I'm used to the empty cans, but full?
That's a waste of good beer.
Exactly. That, by the way, the weekend was the first time I haven't had to go and pick up kids from the Ipswich Cup. My kids were that age, where they're going on. They've all gone to this age now where they're doing something different. But that was the first time. And look, of all those events there, the one that I didn't know about that I would have gone to see is that the karting.
Oh, yeah, that's great fun. It was a round of the a big championship. The name just escapes me for the moment, but I'm hoping they had a great weekend because I've been on that kart track and it is good fun.
Well, I'm impressed with anybody who can get in one of those karts. Like you're only, a centimetre off the ground.
Not far.
And you're doing your backside 60 kilometres, well, between 60 kilometres an hour and 60 mile an hour, right? A centimetre off the ground. If you come off, you're in a hell of a mess.
It's good fun and great to see the Willowbank Motorsport Precinct really coming into its own with all these big events. It's been 2 years and COVID's been the reason why we haven't been able to have some of the events in the past. Let's do some reminiscing to finish off this month's Over the Back Fence. The Jim Gardiner Pool. Mm-hmm. Walt, you were reminiscing with me the other day on the telephone about the old Jim Gardiner Pool.
Yeah, look, I loved the Jim Gardiner Pool back in the day. I remember swimming there on a very regular basis during the warmer months, of course. And I loved the deep end because you could practice your diving and get your lung capacity up for snorkeling and everything.
I wasn't here when it was... no, I was here as it was being closed. That's right.
At the end of it, yeah.
Yeah. Was it an extra deep end?
Oh, it was insane.
11'6" in the old language.
Oh, wow. That is an extra deep end.
It was good. It really tested out the lung power. I'd like to see that come back to Ipswich. It's funny. Every time it gets mentioned on the Lost Ipswich site on Facebook, people go bananas and have terrific memories about the Jim Gardiner Pool and wish it was still part of Ipswich today.
I could give you some memories about it. The original guy who looked after the pool was a guy named Mickey Cannon who drove an old Thames van, and he not only was the pool caretaker, but he was also the guy who was training everybody. And because I was the captain of Railway Swimming Club up there, right, years ago, and I still hold some records in that old pool, believe it or not. I spent every afternoon there and every morning there for about 7 years of my life. Yeah, because it was just such a great pool. Yeah, and it was 11'6", and there were some great people there. You know, I remember old Jim Gardiner. There used to be a monument there. I'm not too sure if it's still there.
I think there is something next to the Coal Miners Memorial that acknowledges Jim Gardiner and the existence of the pool.
And it was Mickey Cannon who gave me my first job hosing out the change rooms there when I was around about 12 years old.
Wow.
Here's another one that'll get you. My sister and I are training under, what was his name? I can't remember. Isn't that terrible? We were training there, and we were the only ones there on a Saturday morning, except for this rather older guy who said he wanted to swim with us. And so we jumped in the water, right, swam the 50 metres. I came in, then he came in, then my sister came in, who was 2 years younger. My sister stood up and said, gee, not bad for an old guy. You know who that old guy was?
Go on.
John Knox. He would go up there and swim in that old pool from the old 4IP days.
Yes. I was talking to John just the other day, and in a future episode, I'll do a bit of cross-promotion here. How about that? In a future episode of Ipswich Today, we'll be acknowledging the 50th anniversary of the Box Flat disaster. Which is coming up towards the end of July. And John, we think, was one of the first, if not the first, newsman on the spot, because he was living in Ipswich at the time, in North Ipswich, and he was already up early to do the breakfast news, and he felt the explosions at his house. He thought it was an earthquake.
Yeah, we'd been out for a drive in my father's new car the day before, and we came home and we were all exhausted, and we slept through it, which was really funny. The whole town was talking about it, and we were so exhausted we slept right through the bang. We were at Ebervale at the time.
Wow, and you would have felt it there for sure. But as you say, slept through it. Well, that's coming up in a future episode. Back to the Jim Gardiner Pool. Well, you were about to say before that the reason it closed, and I'm 100% certain you're right, is it just developed such big cracks they just couldn't seal it.
Yeah, the council claimed there was large cracks and forming leakage, and they couldn't find the sources because they were all over the place. So they ended up just literally digging it in, and the pool is no more to this day, which is a damn shame because it was a real asset for the community.
It certainly was a beautiful location.
Yeah, great spot for a pool. Those photos, great, yeah.
And all the money now has gone down, well, not all the money, but substantial money has gone into the Bundamba Swim Centre, bringing that up to speed.
I know how to make people reminisce about that pool.
Go on.
There was a great cafe, and it had choo-choo bars. and we used to buy choo-choo bars and Redskins, the lollies, when we were kids.
Buy jingos and drumsticks. Very good. We'll do another reminiscing section in next month's Over the Back Fence. In the meantime, thank you, Walter.
Oh, no worries. Thank you, Alan.
Thanks, Ash.
Thanks, mate. You didn't know I could swim, did you?
No.
No, we know you float.
And a reminder, you will find handy links in the show notes. Ipswich Today is supported by Kinetics, people-powered web hosting trusted by Australian businesses since 1999. This podcast is also listener-supported. Please make a once-only gift or regular donation to help keep it online. Just go to ipswichtoday.com.au and click the donate button on the homepage to make a payment through PayPal. Follow and stream this podcast from your favourite app, including iHeartRadio and Amazon Music Podcasts, or play Ipswich Today from smart speakers. Music is supplied by Purple Planet Music. This is Alan Roebuck. Thank you for listening.